I've got a question. Why is doing things that are good for us so difficult? Why is it so hard for us to do things that we know are going to be good for us? This is something I am really struggling with as a whole, probably for the last couple of years of my life, but specifically today. And I've spent a lot of time reflecting on where I am in life and what I actually want to achieve with it. And I realised that I've kept my head buried in the sand for a long time. And that's not a nice thing to admit, but it is something that I need to admit to get started on my journey. Because what I've been doing up until recently is just hiding away, just plugging away, doing the same thing every single day, like Groundhog Day. And what's happened is that over the years, I've just become more and more numb. It's the only way I can describe it. I've just lost my energy and my enthusiasm for life, and I just get by from day to day. And it's not a place I want to be. It's not a place where I would want anyone to be. It's not feeling amazing all the time, and it's not feeling depressed as shit all the time. It's just feeling blah. Just feeling like you've got nothing to look forward to, feeling like the best years of your life are behind you, and feeling like, and I don't want to sound depressive here in the sense that I don't feel like there's anything to look forward to, but I just find it very difficult to envision a future where I am fulfilled and happy in every area of my life. Because truth be told, I think in every single area of my life there is something to be worked on, and in some places more than others. For me, a big thing is work. And you know, when you become an adult, you have responsibilities, you've got bills to pay, and it seems like the older you get, the higher those bills become, and so work becomes more of a priority. And it's something you've really got to take a lot of time to consider, because you're going to be doing it for a lot of your life. And I think that old advice that our parents or our grandparents gave us, that you had to go to a good university and you had to get a good education and get a good job, times have moved on a lot since then. And our generation, millennials and the newer generation, we have a lot more options than we used to have. And that's just a natural consequence of society developing. You know, when Industrial Revolution came along, there were a lot of people that went out of jobs, but there was also a lot of jobs created because you had people that had to work the machines and things like that. So there's always going to be, I guess, like a death and a rebirth, a death of certain familiarities and a rebirth of something new. And I guess for our generation, that's things like AI and YouTube. You know, if I'd have told my parents when I was a kid that I wanted to film myself for a living, they'd probably have sent me to some school for special kids or some kind of hospital for mental treatment. But now it's a recognised career and people are making very good money from it. And those opportunities just didn't exist when our parents were growing up, or our grandparents. So point being is, work is a big thing and we have to give some serious consideration to it. And that's what I've been doing a lot recently. I work in sales. I have been working in sales for 6 or 7 years now, but for the same company. And there are elements of my job that I really like. I like meeting new people. I like listening to people. I like understanding. And also there's a kind of high that comes with getting a deal, or getting a sale. And that just doesn't happen for me anymore. The company I work for has changed a lot. I don't enjoy what I'm doing anymore. And because I've been doing it for so long, I think this is the biggest element, is just that element of repetition, that if I did nothing else with my life, I would have a steady job. I would continue working for this company till I retire, and I would make good money. But just destroys my soul having to get up every day and knowing that I'm going to have to repeat the exact same lines that I've repeated to thousands of customers, and I'm going to have to repeat them 5 times a day, 4 days a week, and it just breaks my soul. And I was chatting to one of the other reps who works for the same company as me, and he's purely money motivated, so he wasn't worried about the repetition and things like that, and it just made me realize how much I am a person that enjoys novelty, that enjoys something new, that needs a challenge and needs to be in an environment where I feel like I'm valued, and that's not how I feel at the moment. And because a vast majority of my time as an adult is spent working, I realised that the roots of my discontent and the roots of my feeling depressed to some extent is because I spend so much of my time doing something that doesn't challenge me, that I don't believe in. And I also realise there's a certain privilege that comes with being in a position to choose my job. I realise that there are a lot of people around the world that don't have that luxury, that will have to do whatever they need to do to get by, and that sucks, you know. And I fully appreciate that the position I'm in is a position of luxury, it's a position of pride, and I don't take that for granted. But you have to work with what you've got, and in this case, I do have options, and I'm just wondering why the hell I don't exercise those options, why I don't do anything differently, and why I have been stuck in this rut. Because the weird thing with my job is it actually occurred to me probably 3 years ago now, that I wasn't happy in my job. But the problem is that I'd got so comfortable. I'd gone from, back then I completely changed my career. I was working in construction. I was miserable. I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I wasn't being paid particularly well. And this opportunity came up for me in sales that was going to be much better paid. It was flexible. I could be my own boss. And for the first couple of years, I absolutely thrived in that environment. I was learning a new product. Everything was new to me, and I was absolutely loving it. But the minute there was nothing more to learn was the minute where I started to lose interest. And I think as human beings, we need to have challenges, whether that's in our career or in our personal life by setting goals and things like that. We all need something to be working towards and a reason to work towards it. And I think for me, I've just lost sight of that. I've just buried my head in the sand. I've done my job that I'm so comfortable with, I can do in my sleep now. And I guess when you bury your head in the sand, you lose sight of the world. And you realise sometimes you have these moments where you realise that your life could be so much more than it is. And you realise that that is your responsibility to make that happen. And you have this massive inspiration that comes out of nowhere, and you suddenly want to change things. But then for some reason, that all that energy and that excitement and that motivation just goes, and before you know it, you've spent another 3 or 4 months doing exactly the same thing again and again. And it's just not an easy place to be. So I'm recording this, I guess, out of frustration, because today I've been looking for new jobs, and I have just encountered such resistance every step of the way. You know, the first thing I had to do was redo my CV, and I'm sat at my computer doing that, and there are just so many distractions, and there's a voice in my head telling me that now's not the right time to do this, that maybe actually you should just leave it a couple of weeks or even just a couple of days, you know, come back to this tomorrow when you feel better. And the truth is that I've been using those excuses my entire life, and if I continue to listen to them, it will be I'll be another 10 years from now working the same job, feeling utterly miserable, and the thought of that fucking kills me. The thought of doing exactly what I'm doing now, being in the same place with no new challenges, it's just not an option. And yet I feel so strongly about not wanting that future for myself. So why do I feel so much resistance about making it happen? Why do we do this as a human species? Like, I've never met a single human that is happy in every area of their life. The only ones that seem to be happy are the ones that are working on it, not necessarily the ones that have achieved it. But the vast majority of us talk about all the problems in our lives. We like to meet up with people, with counsellors, and we like to talk about our problems, but very rarely do we ever actually do anything about it. And I just wonder why that is, because ultimately we want to be happy as human beings. We want to feel fulfilled in our relationships and in our careers, and we want to have enough money in the bank so that we can have roofs over our heads and clothes on our backs and afford healthy, nutritious food. And all of those things are things that no one can deny that they want for themselves. And yet, knowing that we have the opportunity to change them, we never take it. And for me, I guess the only logical explanation, the only reasonable explanation about why I don't take action, or we as human beings don't take these actions, is through fear. And as much as I don't like to admit it, I think I can be quite a fearful person. I think I've become very comfortable doing what I'm doing. I have a very well-established comfort zone with very tall walls, and I don't like stepping outside of it. And when I do, I don't know what's going to happen, because it's been a long time since I've done that. But I know from previous experience that every time I've stepped outside of that comfort zone, I felt alive. I've just felt this feeling of being present again and being connected, and realizing that I've been trapped in this comfort zone. It's a strange thing. You don't know that you're in it until you step outside of it and look at it. And that feeling is only like a distant memory now. It's not something that I'm familiar with, because it's been so long since I've done it. One thing I realize I need to do is to work on my fears. And even the thought of that makes me recoil, makes me want to shut down. And the only way to get over a fear is to step into it. It makes me wonder why humans have this fear instinct, because there are very obvious reasons why we have fear. It's natural to fear swimming in the ocean, because naturally there are sharks. It's natural to fear walking through a dodgy neighborhood late at night. There are reasons why we fear, and that's built into our biology, and I understand that. But why do we fear talking to strangers? Why do we fear going out in public or speaking in public? Why do we fear putting ourselves out there? And I think my only explanation for this is, with us being tribal creatures, going back to cavemen, we all existed in these tribes. And to be outcast from that tribe was to be killed. You survived. We weren't the most successful predators. There were lions and tigers, and if it were a human versus one of those, we would lose all day long. What made us such a successful species was the fact that we were tribal. And to be cast away from that tribe meant that you were vulnerable and you were weak. And I think this element of fear that I'm trying to understand, this element of fear that of talking to new people, of putting yourself out there, I think that comes back to that real baseline fear of being cast out, of being judged, of being set aside. Because when you are one of those things, you are vulnerable. And if you're vulnerable, you're weak. And if you're weak, you can get hurt. It's obviously natural not to be swimming in a deep ocean where there are tons of sharks. I'm not saying that you should step into those things, but I think if there is something that brings up genuine fear in you and there are no bad consequences for that, then you should step into it. If the worst consequence for something that you fear is to be embarrassed, then you should almost definitely step into it. And so that's what I'm doing today. I just wanted to make this video about this sense of resistance and why we resist having good things in our lives, why we resist. I don't think we do resist having good things in our lives. I think we just resist the effort that it takes to get there. I think if someone could hand us these things on a plate without any of the effort, then we would do it. But that's not how life works. And so it's far better to be miserable, comfortable and safe than it is to be potentially happy, uncomfortable and momentarily unsafe. Anyway, I don't have all the answers. As always with this channel, share your experiences in the comments, because we all help each other out here. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's faced this resistance when I've been trying to make positive changes in my life. So if you are going through those things now and you're facing those resistances and you want to find ways of getting over them, or maybe you have found ways of overcoming your resistances, whatever it is, share it in the comments, like, subscribe as always, and I hope that you found this video helpful. Thanks.